Parents, the following program is intended for people over the age of 13. If your kids are younger than that, please use the YouTube Kids app.
Welcome to Scary Stories, the channel that tells you scary stories.
Peter Bernard's Scary Stories for Adults.
You've heard of Killer Orange Cat? Well, this is Kitten Orange Cat, or Walter the Giant Kitten. He is shown here eating my medical face mask for dinner. Laugh if you will, but those cost as much as a can of many brands of cat food and are probably as nutritionally complete. I'm not sure if the kitten is making a political statement, or perhaps an artistic one, with this example of performance art, but I hope he gets good write-ups either way. Welcome to Scary Stories NYC. I'm your old pal Bigfoot. I'm showing Giant Kitten today because we've got a story coming up about an orange Dogman. Actually, we have two different stories submitted by two different people recently from practically the same location in Wisconsin. The other one describes the creature as tan instead of orange, but it's possible in different lighting that they could have seen the same thing. We'll present both stories and let you decide. Today is going to be a good day because our executive producer for these two stories is none other than Gwyn Humphreys. Gwyn has supported us for some while, and we support Gwyn right back. It would be a sin not to like Gwyn. If you would like to become a Scary Stories executive producer like Gwyn Humphreys, simply join our paid subscribers club at peterbernard.com, or click join here on this page to become a channel member. Either method of joining gives you access to hours and hours of secret, uncensored scary stories, plus a new one each Sunday, available only to members. Now let's get to our two scary Dogman stories, both of which we received recently from two different email addresses, both of which are alleged to have happened nearby each other in Wisconsin, not all that far from the original classic Dogman sightings referred to as the Beast of Bray Road. But unlike those sightings, the creature or creatures in both these purported encounters had tan or orange-colored fur. As we jump into these, please note that the Dogman seems to be out and about whether the sun is down or covered by clouds. It seems to view rainstorms as extended night in a number of stories making the rounds lately. Hearsay, anecdotal, nothing proven, nothing even testable. It could be nothing at all, but folklore. We like folklore on this channel, so get ready, and we'll tell you two new Wisconsin Dogman stories. The first one is called Orange Dogman in the Abandoned Playground. Dear Scary Stories NYC, I have a Dogman story that happened to me I guess around a month ago. I haven't told anyone about it because my family has no sense of humor about such things as monsters, and we're kind of going through a tight and serious period right now. We have to work together and make sure we all get through this time okay, and so nobody wants to talk about the scariest thing I ever saw in my life. I'm going to tell you about it because I'd really like to get it out of my system. I realized I was driving when it happened, and I could easily tell it without revealing who I actually am, so here goes. My actual sighting and terrifying encounter with a real Dogman in Wisconsin. I was driving to my family's place, the older house that we jokingly call the ancestral home. I had moved out, but my lease at my apartment was ending as the health crisis was starting, and the timing seemed right for me to stay with my family and help us all pull through this thing. I could figure out where I would live next when we got to that point in the road, but for now, I'm back with my clan so that we can make our stand. This was the morning of my prodigal return, and I was feeling every single emotion that there probably is. I was excited and happy to be seeing everyone again. I was anxious about the upcoming struggles and hoped they could prove lighter than what we've been expecting. And I was also sad seeing the roads so empty and most things closed and even boarded up. I was feeling all those emotions as I drove up West Avenue, past the abandoned playground that I had brought my niece and nephew to only the previous summer. Then, to my surprise, I thought I caught someone or something moving over by the swing set. Now, you have to remember, it was just at the very beginning of dawn. The sky was beginning to light up different colors, but on the ground, it was still essentially dark as night. There was no traffic anywhere, so I put the car in park and got out of my driver's side door, looking across the roof of the car into the playground. I heard a half of a voice in my head whisper, "Mind your own business." And another said something to the effect of, "Nosy people sometimes lose their noses." I felt like if I kept looking to understand what that was by the swing set, I might not like what I was gonna find. I thought about walking closer, but decided it didn't really matter who was in an abandoned park at dawn. It really was none of my business. I was being nosy. I was about to get back into the driver's seat and drive away, never to think about any of this ever again, when something happened that changed everything. Changed my entire life. Changed my mind. It just changed everything. The thing that was over by the swings took a step forward into the light. It turned out he was as curious about me as I was about him. I was looking at a dog, but I was seeing the underside of the dog as it walked toward me. I was seeing both the face and the underside. It was like being inside a Picasso for a few moments until I realized I had not entered the 12-dimensional universe. What was happening was I was viewing a dog that was walking tilted back so that its underside became its chest. I guess I could say it walked upright like we do, but that's not the order my mind went through that night or morning when first trying to understand and interpret the visual input that my eyes were taking in. Its posture was not like that of a man, which is another thing that threw me off about it and continues to leave me in a sort of state of shock about it. I mean, it's been over a month now, I think, or almost that long. I shouldn't still be having nightmares about it. It was really more upsetting than I feel it should have been. I can understand being upset that night, but not this long afterward. I'm a grown man. However, that night, I admit it was a truly horrifying occurrence. I mean, I didn't know if I would come out of it alive. That might sound like I'm being dramatic, but I wasn't looking at no puppy dog in that park. It was a big, orange monster with a dog head full of fangs, barking mad, and with long, shaggy orange fur that flew everywhere all around it, making it seem even bigger than it already was, which was big. I got back in that car, and as I did so, I could see the creature flipping out and racing in my direction. I made the left onto Graydon Avenue, driving between the high school on my right and the middle school on my left. There was no traffic. That must have inspired the dog thing because it ran out onto the 2-lane road after me, barking like a guard dog in a junkyard. It didn't matter that I was inside my car. I felt completely exposed and vulnerable to that behemoth and monster. It was too large to be real, and it was so furious at me for no apparent reason. It had chosen me to take down, or maybe just to scare. I had no choice but to assume the worst and hit the gas, skidding all over the road, trying to accelerate faster than the animal man on the road behind me. It seemed to be running after me on its hind legs at first, but then at some point it might have dropped to all fours, because really all I saw behind me was this long, shaggy fur flying in every direction. I was utterly panicked, and I screamed as I pushed my foot down on the gas as hard as it would go. I was cursing one second and praying the next. I looked up at one point, and I didn't see it behind me anymore. That made me even more frightened, as I wondered if it had gotten ahead of me, or if it was readying itself to ambush me from one side or the other. I kept speeding, thoroughly terrified, until I saw an old man out for an early walk, and I realized I was in a residential neighborhood. The dogman had probably stopped chasing me. Even if he was still after me, my speeding would only place other lives at risk, and it wouldn't do any good for me. As jittery as I was, I forced myself to slow down. It felt like I was operating in slow motion. All I wanted to do was get to my family's house. I remember crying as I drove, so sad and overwhelmed by what had just happened. I still didn't know if I was out of danger. I still didn't know if that loud, barking monster wasn't gonna just leap out at me again. It was a little too much for me after having driven all night. When I got to my family's house, I was still having a hard time calming down, and I've never really been in a very good mood even once again since that morning. My very first day home, there were arguments in the house, and I was unable to settle them the way I used to in the old days. I was always the centered one with his feet on the ground. I was always able to get each side to see it the other's way, so that compromises could be worked out. This time, staying at my parents' place, I just kind of wanted to be alone. I'm helping out the best I can, but any conversation at all seems like gibberish to me. It gets annoying fast. I wish I could be alone, and stay alone, for days, weeks, months, years if need be, until I could start to feel normal again. That big, orange dogman took my courage from me. He took my sense of personal self-assurance. He took my personality. I don't even know who I am anymore. I don't know what's up or down. I spent some time online looking up my sighting to see if anyone else had a similar experience near me. It turned out that what happened to me was only about a 15-minute drive away from the original Beast of Bray Road sightings in the 1990s. The thing is, those sightings were of creatures that had short, dark hair. This creature did not look like that, so the proximity to Bray Road may be a red herring. It's very possible that the monster that shook my world and rattled the foundations of it may have nothing at all to do with the famous Bray Road beast. Then again, maybe they're cousins. I wouldn't know. All I do know is that I wish I had never stopped to look at that thing. I wish I had just kept driving and never looked back. It was stupid of me to stop and stare at an apex predator, when now I can't get the fear of it out of my head. Nothing has been the same since I saw the orange dogman in the abandoned playground. Dogman behind the Piggly Wiggly. Dear Scary Stories NYC. I'm born and raised in Wisconsin, and one of the goals on my bucket list has always been to see the Wisconsin Dogman or the Beast of Bray Road. Since I was a kid, my dad humored me, and he would drive me and my best friend Joe up and down Bray Road on spooky nights like Halloween, or sometimes just whenever he felt like it. I could never tell if he also believed in the Dogman like I did, but he liked to drive around at night looking for monsters, and so that was what we did. I didn't really expect that going back to my home in Wisconsin to take care of my mom during this health crisis thing would lead to my first ever actual sighting of something that I guess must have been the Dogman. I wish my dad could have been there. I told my mother all about it, and I couldn't tell if she was happy for me or laughing at how ridiculous I was being. It was quite an emotional moment for me to be in the presence of something strange and possibly supernatural. I've been a firm believer in everything for my entire life, but was never gifted with a visit before. I feel like I've been as sincere as Linus in his pumpkin patch, and yet the great pumpkin never dropped by to say hello. Not until now, that is, when he dropped by in the form of the Dogman. I was behind the Piggly Wiggly a while back, way too early in the morning before they opened. My mom told me I should get there super early to beat the lines, but I was the only one there, and it was still dark out. I should have just gone home and come back later, but it was nice to be outside in the quiet, listening to the breeze blow, not having to say or do or think anything. I wandered toward the back of the parking lot and stared out at the street behind it, which I think is called Main Street, but I don't even remember. Nobody was out, and I was just watching things blow in the slight wind and enjoying my utter solitude. And then, I was no longer alone. Out of a small grove of trees across Main Street emerged a monster. That's what it was. It was a hairy, ugly monster. Not a bug-eyed monster, or a green-eyed monster. This was a hairy monster with a mangy-looking wolf's head. It almost looked like a Frankenstein wolf. It was so distorted and weird-looking. We both saw each other at the same moment, and we both reared back in surprise away from each other at the same time. But whatever momentary advantage I may have had with the dog being briefly scared of me was flushed away as I screamed like a baby girl and fell backward on my butt. This agitated the creature even more, and it somehow made itself even taller than it had been previously. I was staring up at a roughly man-shaped monster covered in hair, but it had canine-style legs, and it had a dog or wolf-style head. It still wasn't a dog, though. It was a monster. I got up off my butt, and I ran. I thought it would be the thing to do. I'd seen it done in so many movies. Well, let me tell you something Hollywood movies don't. Running away from a big, hairy, bipedal monster is dumb. You want to know why? Because it only inspires the big, ugly thing to run after you. So let me explain what exactly I'm saying was chasing after me. It had a German Shepherd kind of head, but fiercer, more feral, scarier looking somehow. The fur was that sort of tan color all over. It seemed to get longer as it went down over the body, but it was all messed up and uneven. It looked longer in some spots than others, as though this dog-headed man had seen some rough times of it lately, or else just had a very bad barber. Nevertheless, I would say it was more like a German Shepherd than anything else. It seemed to be largely tan, with darker highlights. I remember feeling it was more man than beast, though. I remember feeling as though it had hands, not paws. I cannot for the life of me draw up images in my mind of the hands when they were specifically viewable by me. So that might have been something I just imagined in my horror. You have to understand, I went from peaceful, quiet contemplation to racing away from a hairy dogman taller than me that just leaped the fence behind me as though it were a hurdle in track class. Imagine the biggest guy you ever saw angry and running after you. Then imagine he got twice as tall and grew fangs. That's what I was faced with, and I didn't think I was going to make it back to my car. I did, though, and I drove home. And when my mother asked me where all the groceries were, I don't even remember what I told her. I think I passed out on the way into the house from the car. I just passed out, face down in the dirt. There wasn't anything I could do to stay conscious. I was there 1 second and in dreamland the next. Getting chased through an empty parking lot at the Piggly Wiggly by a big dog man can do that to you. If you don't believe me, just try it yourself. I think I held my breath the entire drive home. I never saw anything like that before, and I've seen some time in action, which I won't get into here. I thought I'd seen everything in my life, but here was this giant German shepherd, crossed with a UFC fighter, crossed with some kind of biblical giant. Nothing that big is meant to walk around on its hind legs. That thing must have come straight up from hell. I hope it goes back there too, I'll tell you that. I never want to see anything like that again so long as I live. I can't feel normal around here anymore. I have insomnia. I just stare out the windows, wondering if any of those German shepherd people are out there wandering around in the night. As scary as it was, I still kind of wish I could have gotten a better look at him. I mean, not from that close up, not from where I could get myself in trouble. I mean, I sure would love to see one of them walk through the backyard one night or something like that, so I could see it from out the window but not have it see me. I sure wish I had gotten a better look at the hands and the legs, because that's what everyone keeps asking me about. At the time, I just saw its eyes flashing, and its teeth, and I heard it sort of snarling. It sounded and looked like it meant business, and I didn't take any time to make mental notes about how it looked in too much detail. I regret that sometimes, but other times, I remember that I was running for my life. I had one chance to get away, and there weren't going to be any redos. And so that's my story of the other day when I got chased by the Dogman behind the Piggly Wiggly. And now, get ready for an all-new, completely uncensored, slightly bloody, and absolutely terrifying new Dogman story. Oh, wait. YouTube won't allow me to tell you stories like that on this channel. If you want to hear that, you're going to have to go to peterbernard.com and sign up for our paid subscribers club. You can choose any price you can afford for a 1-month subscription, and then every weekend, we tell you a story YouTube would never allow us to tell you on this channel. See you this Sunday for an all-new, very scary, completely uncensored Dogman story.
Come back for more scary stories.